Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I am your host, God of Heroics, or you can just call me Hero. Today, I am just uploading one of my videos from a stream I did over on IRIAM. I went ahead and recorded this while running the stream, so if you want to catch any of my streams live, you can go ahead and find me on IRIAM, or just wait for me to go ahead and just upload the full stream here. It's always going to be about an hour to 2 hours, maybe a little bit more, depending on how much time I have. But anyway, enjoy. Apparently, we're getting a shit ton of videos out of this one. So be on the lookout for an entire month where we just talk about Jujutsu Kaisen on my YouTube channel. All right, let's go ahead and pull up some images of curse tools for the sake of the visuals here. Boop, 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 boop. If I remember correctly, this is not that long of a thing to go over, right? Yeah, this is like 2 pages. The death moon, not the death moon paintings, the cursed objects was that was like 3-4 pages long. This is 2. We'll get through it very fast because there's a decent amount to go over, but it's not that bad. All right, so cursed tools are weapons and support items that are imbued with cursed energy to be utilized by Jujutsu sorcerers to exercise cursed spirits. These can range from tools simply bathed in cursed energy long enough for the weapon to have its own cursed energy, or bathed in cursed energy long enough to craft their own techniques. So because of this, people with low levels of cursed energy and those without it completely, like non-sorcerers, and those with heavily restrictions like Maki and Toji, can use them to combat cursed spirits, since they basically don't have enough cursed energy on their own to kill them. Oh, thank you for the star, by the way, Glitchtrap. I just peeped that just now. So because of, oh, no, I read that part. Because of this, weapons like katanas and staffs can become cursed tools if a sorcerer containing cursed energy were to constantly imbue that weapon with its own cursed energy. On the flip side, weapons reinforced with cursed energy are not considered cursed tools. So if you, yeah, like the glasses girl, my wife Maki, I fucking love Maki. She is my favorite character in this entire series. That might be a lie. No, she's top 2. Her and Yuta are tied. Yuta is my favorite male character. She's my favorite female character, and together they make my favorite couple in all of JJK. Probably up there, like some of my favorites in fiction in general. But so yeah, if the weapon is bathed in enough cursed energy, it can become a cursed tool, while as reinforcing a weapon with cursed energy does not make it a cursed tool. So if I take a knife and I coat it in cursed energy so that I can block and fight against cursed spirits, it is not a cursed tool. But if I basically keep using that weapon in combat, bathing it in my own cursed energy, then over time it will become a cursed tool. Like Nanami's weapon, his machete of sorts, I think I don't remember the exact name of his weapon, but Nanami's yeah, I don't remember the name of this weapon, but anyway, Nanami's weapon, it's called a blunt sword. That's what it's called. Nanami's blunt sword is considered a cursed tool because he uses that weapon regularly coated with cursed energy for the sake of his critical hit technique, and now that weapon has taken on his cursed technique, which is why it can be utilized by sorcerers later on. So moving on. So just like sorcerers and spirits and cursed objects, cursed tools are graded based on how powerful they are, with special grade weapons not only being the most powerful but also containing cursed techniques of their own. So even if they aren't officially ranked as special grades, we're going to go ahead and say that they're special grade if they have their own technique. And that's because while looking through the JJK wiki for this research, there are weapons that are not ranked at all, but they are said to have their own curse technique. And as far as we know, special grade weapons are the only ones that have their own curse techniques. So the 3 big clans basically keep all of their cursed tools pretty much hidden away in the warehouse at Jujutsu High. So all 3 clans, the Gojo, the Kamo, and the Zenin, all agree that Jujutsu High School will have all of their cursed weapons. And I want to assume, I have not looked at a map for JJK, but I want to assume that Jujutsu High School is the center point between all three of these clans. Either that or all the clans basically keep this school as like their primary headquarters in a sense. Because, you know, they send all their students there to pretty much be trained in all that stuff. So there's a lot of curse tools, and I'm not going to go over every single one, but instead I'm going to talk about the ones that are owned and used by two prominent wielders of curse tools, and those would be Toji and Maki's tools. So we're going to start with Maki being my favorite female character in all of JJK. So Maki is a fairly complex character to discuss, and we'll go into detail about that later. But what's important to know is that she has no cursed energy. So in order to fight, she has to use cursed tools. So she has, as we said, she has no cursed energy, so she can't see curses. So her glasses are considered a cursed tool because not only are they bathed in cursed energy, but they have the added curse technique of being able to see curses, you know, because the person that would be wearing them would not be able to see curses naturally. So the glasses that Maki wore in Jujutsu Kaisen 0, the movie, were broken, and she basically had to get a new pair, and those were broken as well in the Shibuya incident. So she needed a new pair desperately. Maki's weapon of choice is a pole arm, and much like her glasses, her pole arm was broken in Jujutsu Kaisen 0, the movie. But unlike her glasses, her replacement was not broken in the Shibuya incident. It was broken before that in the Goodwill invasion by Hanami. So Maki's pole arm only had the blade imbued with cursed energy, so pretty much the handle was just a regular ass staff, while the blade was made specifically for killing and exercising spirits, which I think is stupid as hell because yeah, the blade is good for killing, but when you're fighting with the Naginata, you can use the staff part to block or redirect attacks. So why would they not make the staff part also a curse tool? That's kind of dumb. Like that's a fail on their part, to be honest. So the next tool is Slaughter Demon. This was the wide dagger that Maki basically let Gojo borrow for the sake of letting Yuji use something until he was able to use his own cursed energy. And yeah, so unfortunately that weapon is also broken. It was broken by the first finger bearer, the special grade curse that Sukuna basically awakened and ended up killing in their first interaction. The next one I want to talk about that Maki uses far better than the other person on this list is Miwa's katana. So Maki disarmed Miwa during the Goodwill arc, and from this point forward, she just keeps using the sword. The sword is a semi-cursed tool because it was imbued with cursed energy by Miwa, most notably during her use of her new shadow technique. It touched Hanami during the invasion, and that's all the proof I need to really say that it's a cursed tool, because regular objects can't really like touch and cursed spirits unless they're imbued with cursed energy or coated in cursed energy. Uh, Matt Attack, thank you for joining the stream. We are discussing a lot of stuff regarding cursed energy. We went over the basics of cursed energy and cursed objects, and right now we are talking about cursed tools. And I see it's your first time in the stream, so I should probably introduce myself. I am the God of Heroics, and I basically look through all different lore and stories so that I can find heroes to gift the blessing of a hero, pretty much gifting them a boost in power and plot armor, also allowing myself to utilize any of their abilities that I deem fit for myself. Unfortunately, today we are not necessarily talking about heroes, but we are discussing things in lore like power systems, which is something that we will often be doing in videos like this. So sit back, enjoy. We are discussing cursed tools. So Dragon Bone was created by Juzo. You know, it's that one guy who got all his limbs mangled by Gojo in season 1. So she stole this from Juzo's workshop and used it to win a battle against somebody that we will see her fight in season 3. I don't want to say who that person is. This special grade curse tool can store force and cursed energy and then release it at will. So think like Black Panther's vibranium suit in the MCU, where it just absorbs kinetic energy and then releases it in bursts of explosions. But instead of a suit, it's a sword. Next up is actually my favorite curse tool, Playful Cloud. I want this damn thing so bad. It's like $40 on Amazon. I think I'm gonna buy it on my next paycheck. But this weapon is a 3-section bow staff, and it's the only curse tool with no cursed energy. However, it manages to be a special grade curse tool because it does have a curse technique, drawing out the full destructive power of whoever wields it. In addition to it, this weapon is so durable, it was only broken by Toji himself when he decided to use it to kill Dagon in the Shibuya incident. This is genuinely my favorite weapon, not just because it's a 3-section staff, which is objectively the coolest weapon in my opinion. Like, I love swords a lot and I love nunchucks, and like my third favorite weapon would probably be like a bow staff, which is crazy. So to discuss, there's a difference between something being my favorite and usability. So bow staffs are my best weapon to use, but my favorite weapon would be swords. And a bow staff, you know, as fun as it is to utilize, it gets the added effect with the 3-section staff of also being nunchucks. And I think that's objectively one of the coolest things you can do with a weapon. Just section it off and make it a multi-use tool. All right, but I think it's really cool to be in the hands of somebody like Maki and Toji, because what we said you know, pretty frequently about heavily restrictions is that if you have no cursed energy, your physical stats are basically through the roof. And Maki and Toji having no cursed energy would make their physical stats, well, through the roof. And Playful Cloud boosting those stats, pretty much drying out their full potential in every strike, makes it so that anybody with a heavenly restriction, being these two, is absolutely at their best physically when utilizing this weapon. And with the idea that all of their senses and stats are and everything are boosted, this is probably like one of the best weapons that somebody like them can use. There is another weapon, well, actually the very next weapon on this list that is considered, in my opinion, to be better. So let's talk about that. So since we mentioned Toji, let's talk about the other connoisseur of curse techniques. So his collection, he has the Split Soul Katana. And this is a sword that looks exactly like the Tessaiga from Inuyasha, but what its ability is that it ignores durability and other capabilities of the enemies, striking their soul directly. This is the sword that Toji used when Geto summoned the Rainbow Dragon, and he basically put the sword into its side and cut along the entire length of the dragon, killing it. Maki does get a replica of this sword later in season 3, and we're not going to talk about what happens and how she gets it, but it is pretty much just the exact same weapon. It is the Split Soul Katana, just 2.0. So the special grade curse tool known as Chain of 1,000 Miles is also used by Toji during the Hidden Inventory arc, and it is a chain that extends endlessly as long as the end of the chain isn't seen. So Toji would keep the end inside of his cursed spirit's mouth, allowing him to extend the chain at any length. It can also be attached to weapons, like when he attached it to his dagger, which we're about to talk about literally right now. So, the Inverted Spear of Heaven is a Jite dagger that bypasses all curse techniques on contact. This is the dagger that he killed Gojo with in the Hidden Inventory arc. As we saw when he was about to stab Gojo, he activated his infinity as a barrier to block the knife, but the dagger just punctured right through it very easily and unfortunately was able to lay waste to Gojo. There are a ton of more curse tools, but we're not really going to talk about them. I just want to talk about the ones that are most notable in the series, and also the ones that are considered special grade tools. The others aren't really important to talk about because they're just weapons coated in cursed energy. It's nothing special as far as those. But yeah, cursed objects out of the way, cursed tools out of the way, the basics on cursed energy are out of the way, and that pretty much, God, that is, we're damn near like what, halfway done maybe, and we're already at the 2 hour mark, so this is definitely going to be a long one. But yeah, there are some honorable mentions when it comes to cursed tools, like Nobora's hammer is considered a cursed tool, and then freaking what's his name, Sukuna has a cursed tool that we'll see probably in season 3 or season 4, depending on how this season is paced, probably a season 4. The hand sword that Twink had, the one that got his ass beat by Nanami in season 2, I don't remember his name, but he had a sword that where the handle was literally a hand. That's a cursed tool, and I'm pretty sure it also is a special grade. My not my Mei Mei, her battle axe is also considered, a cursed tool, or a cursed tool. So there's a decent amount of cursed tools within JJK. Off topic question. With the talk of curse restriction and how basically the more powerful you are, the more potential restricted. What the fuck is Gojo's restriction? So Gojo doesn't have a heavenly restriction. So heavenly restrictions are not. Heavenly restrictions are not placed on everybody. There are very few people that actually get them. In JJK standard, not talking about the Modulo manga that is continuing right now, but in JJK Prime, there are 3 characters that have heavenly restrictions, and we see them at their most extreme. So you can argue that there are some other characters with restrictions, but we'll talk about that after. So Mekamaru, he has a heavenly restriction that basically gives him a shit ton of cursed energy, but he basically has the most frail body ever. Like, he's like that dude in SpongeBob, I was born with paper skin and glass bones. He's basically that guy, but his cursed energy is so vast, it covers a huge amount of Japan, and he can pretty much control his Mekamaru bots from anywhere, as long as they're like within his like range. And don't say he blindfolds himself. That is, yeah. Gojo blindfolding himself is not a restriction technically. It's more for the sake of him focusing. But yeah, so there's Mekamaru, whose actual name I don't remember. Let's go ahead and look that up. If you remember his name, let me know, because I sure as hell don't. Mekamaru, real name. Yeah, let's go ahead and look at that, because I super don't remember Mekamaru's actual name. Kokichi Muto. I was never gonna remember that. And if that's your favorite character, you probably remember, but I sure as hell don't remember. Mekamaru, with his actual puppets, all his puppets look like ass except the one that's based on the Eva from Evangelion. And then his actual look, it's okay. I mean, when he gets his real body back, like when Mahito heals his body, he looks pretty cool. Like, if he looks like Speed of Sound Sonic from One Punch Man, to be honest. But then obviously the opposite side of the restriction is Maki and Toji, who have no cursed energy, but their physical capabilities are boosted out the ass. The only reason Maki is not as strong as Toji in season 1 and 2 is because in the eyes of cursed energy, twins are basically the same person. So since Maki has a twin sister, Mai, who has very, very little cursed energy, in the eyes of cursed energy, she has like a smidget of cursed energy. So her physical stats, they're up there, but they're not as high as Toji's. So yeah, that's a whole thing. But Gojo doesn't have a heavenly restriction. So the way the 6 eyes work, it's like he can't turn them off. So since they're always functioning, running regularly, they help him with like his cursed energy control. So all of his techniques pretty much take less cursed energy to do, because he's far more precise with cursed energy through the 6 eyes. He can also see much farther than any other person's perception with the 6 eyes. He can detect cursed energy way better than anybody else. He can see weaknesses in cursed energy better than anybody else. He also Gojo is constantly running his infinity barrier, which his six eyes are moderating on autopilot on a regular basis. So you can imagine that Gojo would just be tired on a regular day, like on a general day to day. He would be exhausted. Imagine like if Kakashi had his Mangekyo Sharingan activated and not covered by his headband at all times. Why not just make Gojo the main character at this point? Because, okay, it's because the story of JJK is more about Gojo's ideals than it is about Gojo himself. So Gojo, excuse me, so since Gojo's birth, he has been the most powerful sorcerer in existence. Like, so much so that when he was born, the Jujutsu world shifted in a way to basically accommodate him, where curses are now like, oh shit, I'm not going to be anywhere near this guy. Like, he pretty much has like an infinite barrier of get the fuck away from me around him on a regular basis. Just his pure existence alone makes people scared, makes people, you know, like actual sorcerers and then cursed spirits genuinely like scared to fuck with him. Like I said in the previous stream, Gojo is so powerful that when anybody who's even close to his level wants to fight alongside him, he tells them not to fight alongside him because they're a liability. In order for him to go all out and fight at his maximum capacity, there has to be literally nobody around. Quite literally not a soul. Like, they have to pretty much ISO and give him the fair ones with whoever he's fighting. Otherwise, they could just be in the way. But Gojo's ideals is that because the Jujutsu sorcery world functions that way, where the strongest is pretty much like seen as like the pinnacle and the world bends to its will, he wants to harbor the next generation to be to basically be that, but as a group. He functions in a way where he wants the next generation to essentially work together to create this perfect world, rather than the world just being like, oh, Gojo is, you know, going to be the one to do it. He wants everybody to work together and be responsible and accountable for all that together. Yeah, so that's why Gojo's not the main character. His ideals are taken into consideration when you see like Yuji and like Nobara fight together, when he fights alongside Megami, when any of the characters team up together, which is also why I like Jujutsu Kaisen in terms of like jumping people. Jumping people is essentially what Gojo wants, which is hilarious to say. Like, he doesn't want there to be one person that oversees the whole thing and kind of rules the world as like a democracy, as a not a democracy, as a dictator, and basically saying like, oh well, the world bends to my will and so will everybody else. He wants the people to come together and build that kind of world on their own. And that's why I love when Yuji and all of them are kind of like jumping their enemies, whether it's 2-on-1, 3-on-1, or whatever, or as we'll see later, like everyone versus one. Yeah, that I love that, because the show is essentially showing us what Gojo wants, but on a smaller scale, so that when we eventually get to what he wants on a grander scale, we're kind of already prepped to see it. It says, yeah, when I'm making the main character, this is the craziest part is that he's so powerful, he's carefree, like he just doesn't give a shit. Yeah, it's kind of, I like it because I have a strong, so one of my strongest themes personally that I vibe with any character in fiction is the sense of freedom, and which is why I like One Piece as much as I do. I love One Piece. Luffy's ideals are freaking amazing to me. I love when he goes anywhere and then like he just sees the oppression going on and he instantly is like, I'm gonna beat the shit out of whoever I gotta beat out of to give these people their freedom. And he doesn't do it by himself. He does it with his crew, and then the people on the island also fight back with him, whether they be like, you know, 1 or 2 warriors here or like a whole gang. And it eventually comes to a point where there's like a whole army is backing Luffy to be like, take down this dictator. We want our freedom back. We want the power back into the people. And Gojo essentially embodies that. Like, he's not the character like that, but he wants everybody else to be like that, which is why he trains his students the way he does, and why he why even that one episode in JJK, he was like, man, I want to kill the higher ups like so bad. Like he, because the higher ups are pretty much old, like they're really like old people that have been holding like jujutsu sorcery, or the jujutsu sorcery world, together under these strict rules and how they move and how they operate. And Gojo didn't like that, and he's like, man, I one day I'm gonna kill these dudes. Like I'm just not gonna care anymore. He's like, what would happen? Like, what would happen if I killed them and just granted everybody the freedoms that they needed? And to be honest, I wish he had done that earlier, because then we wouldn't have gotten characters like Geto being evil. But the story would have worked a lot differently if he did. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about cursed energy. So we're gonna get back into that.